Hey everybody, it's Rajesh here.
And Tane here.
Welcome to our podcast, Baskets of Knowledge, Chats with a Difference. In our podcast, we invite guests from around the country and around the world to talk about how they got to where they're at the moment. It's about a journey, it's about an experience, it's about their life. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. As you all know from my familiar list of our listeners, I forget the count, but I think we're on 84, 85. So thank you for listening in. Tane, how are you today?
Yeah, good. Up in Christchurch for the weekend, which is quite good. The weather's a bit better than in Dunedin, and it's good that it's starting to get a bit warmer too.
Yeah, awesome. So what have you put into your basket of knowledge since we last spoke?
I think what I've put into my basket of knowledge, I was also up here last weekend helping coach South Island Scorpions. And so for those who know, like I'm getting a bit higher in terms of coaching. So not just a regional level, but now taking these girls up to nationals. And I think last weekend I was quite a bit standoffish because, it's a higher level, it's a new coaching management. And so I didn't really know, what their coaching style was or if I was capable of doing this role. But I guess from last weekend, it was just cool to see that me and the other coaches have very similar philosophies. And I guess it shows, that no matter where you go in terms of, if you're doing a higher level at something, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to change the ways of what you do to try and accommodate, what you think should be done at a higher level. So it's just awesome to see that, you are capable of doing things at that higher level, even if you don't necessarily see it to begin with.
Yeah, and I love that because there's this perception in the world that as you get higher and higher, you have to act a certain way, and as you act a certain way, you start to lose your values, your true values, and then you stop enjoying what you're doing and why you're doing, whether it's sporting or whether it's in management or whatever your thing is. If you stay away from your values, then things are going to stray a little bit and not become enjoyable. And yeah, that's fantastic. And my learning over this last week was basically perception. Perception of what people think versus what you think. There's two sides to every coin, and we have this. Humans are built in a way that we only see one side of the coin, and we forget that there's another side as well. And why is this important for me? Because it's important for me because as I become aware, sorry, of things, I realize that I'm not always right about the way I do things, and it's okay for me to be challenged and to actually say, actually, I don't know everything. I don't know everything, and it's okay to see a piece of paper, and there's actually two sides to a piece of paper. Actually, this is a bad example, but there's two sides to every piece of paper. So yeah. So yeah, perception. But hey, that's why we love life. We learn about things all the time. And talking about learning about things all the time, we're gonna stop talking because Tanya and myself can keep bantering up forever and ever. And as our regular guests know, we're not here to talk about Tanya and myself. We're here to talk to people that we think are amazing. And as you know, we think that everyone out there is amazing. We'd love to interview everybody, but we can't do that. So we scour the country, we scour the world, and we find people that we know, we find personally interesting and amazing, but also that we know you'll find interesting and amazing. And today, we've done the same thing. Our guest is a pretty fascinating human being, and we're really, really privileged to have him on. And welcome to our podcast, Loyd.
Oh, hello, Kiara, everyone. Yeah, I'm so excited and pretty much nervous being here today as a guest because I'm still not getting used to like talking about like something like being a guest and something like a show or something like this one. But I'm pretty stoked to be here today, just having like conversation for this podcast show. So
No,
yeah,
and
thank you for the invite.
beautiful, but actually, sorry, I'm the one that's nervous because I've seen all the cool stuff that you do, and like, wow, I'm speaking to someone that's going to be pretty awesome. So the nerves are going to be both ways. So fantastic. So Loyd, before we get started, do you want to tell our listeners a bit about who you are, and then we'll get into your story?
So yeah, I'm Loyd Doron, and I'm originally from the Philippines. And yeah, I recently moved here in Wellington, New Zealand to pursue my studies in film. But originally I'm from a small town in the Philippines, and pretty much I really have an extreme passion for both storytelling and filmmaking, and that's what get me to New Zealand today, to where I am today, where I wanted to pursue more and trying to improve my storytelling skills and in the field of filmmaking. And yeah, I grew up in a small town in the Philippines, and I'm currently an international student here in Wellington, New Zealand, though I'm still kind of struggling to fit in and try to settle down, try to kind of like get into industry in New Zealand, but everything's been good so far. So Yeah.
Love that. That's a great intro, Lloyd, because there's so much that we can tap into as we go into this conversation. So I think the first thing for us to start off with is let's think about Lloyd growing up in small town Philippines. And if I came to visit Lloyd in small town Philippines all those years ago, and said, "Hey, Lloyd, in 5 or 6 or 7 years' time, you are going to be in Wellington, New Zealand," what would you have said to me?
I think it's just the thing that I'm just always proud of like telling to other people about my small hometown is just the simplicity of the simple living back home, like a simple lifestyle. Because me growing up in like a small countryside town island in the Philippines, it's just pretty much everything is just a simple living. And like we have this sense of like a culture of like very close-knit community where you basically almost know everyone and just like helping each other out. And that's something that I really miss back home in my hometown because, like coming from a very close-knit and family-oriented community culture in the Philippines and coming to New Zealand, there's kind of like a cultural difference that I kind of like miss as well. So I think, yeah, I'm really proud of like the beautiful beaches that my small hometown could offer. And yeah, the people is like friendly and just like helping each other out. The generosity of my small knit community. Yeah.
And I guess that's what happens when you live in a small community. I think about I grew up in Africa. I grew up in terms of the world, it's a small place, but in terms of New Zealand, it's a big place. And when I grew up, I knew my neighbors, people know everybody. It feels like you just step out of the house and everyone knows who everyone is. And then you come to New Zealand and you're like, oh, I've got to reestablish this. And when I came 20 years ago and I felt the same thing as you, Lloyd, I was like, how do I find my feet? How do I know my people? It's such a different world, different culture. And even today, 20 years on, I still miss and I still think about my time as I was growing up in that small community in Africa. It's something that we can both relate to because it sets us up for the future because you go, hey, if this is what I miss, how can I create it when I'm away? And and that's going to come to your next part of your, I guess, the conversation is let's talk about your storytelling. So when I've been following you and looking at all your amazing, amazing media, there was one moment that really stood out for me is when you said that you applied for a scholarship to go to a amazing school in the Philippines and that didn't happen for you. How did you feel when you go, okay, cool, this is what I want to do, and then at that moment in time, the door closes for just a short time when you get that rejection?
Yeah, I feel that it was one of my pivotal moment and kind of like my inciting incident that really motivates me a lot. That kind of if one door closes for an opportunity, I see that. Well, the moment that I've heard that I didn't get into that film school in the Philippines, I feel like my life was shattered, or like it might be like the end of my dream because it's kind of like one of my dream school to get into. Like that's like they say like one of the top best school in the Philippines to pursue like creative courses and like basically like film and stuff. But the moment that I hear like the news, like I didn't get in, like the scholarship, I was not granted for the scholarship. I feel like, oh, it might just be the end of my kind of like my dream. Maybe I should just like do something and like maybe filmmaking is not for me. But later, and I just suddenly realized that when an opportunity one door closes, I kind of like started seeing it as a motivation that I might just wanted to do something like any other things that would lead me to kind of like open an opportunity for me, like create the opportunity for myself. So I was just like, oh, maybe I'm just gonna start like doing freelancing on my own, and then started like making short films and submitting to international film festival. And then later on, people started recognizing my skills and my talent. And especially in a small province, filmmaking and like doing creative stuff like this is not really common, and like people don't know more about it because it's just a very small province. We're like, oh, you could make money out of it. And then when they started recognizing that my short films and some of my work being recognized in some international film festival, they started supporting me as well. So especially my town, my town council and this and people like all over my city started sharing my work. Oh, this guy, we should support this guy because he's kind of like doing these amazing things that would kind of like motivate fellow teenagers as well. So I feel like that moment that I didn't get into the scholarship, it kind of like gave me an opportunity as well to build myself, but at the same time motivate other people as well. Because instead of just like spending all day just like, oh, I failed, maybe it's the end of my dream, but I kind of create opportunity for myself. So yeah, I think that was like kind of the amazing thing that I could suddenly realize for myself, that maybe just like create an opportunity for myself, and it kind of like work today.
It's crazy, because in rejection, there's two ways we can go. A, go rejection, and we just doubt ourselves and we go down a bad pathway. Or rejection, like you say, opens up opportunities. And those opportunities, let's just say if you had got the offer into your school, your life would have very different, a very, very different trajectory. And we have no idea what will happen. But you could honestly say you wouldn't be here today if you had taken that opportunity if you hadn't gone to school, because it would have a different pathway. And Tanya, I'm going to bring you in here because you've had rejection as well. We talk about, you were a subwarden for a year or so, and you applied again, and for whatever reason, you was told no. You felt pretty bad about that. I remember that time. But as you reflect back, think about the opportunities that have arisen for you when that big thing, which is a big part of your life, was taken away from you.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I reflect on, like there's still a part of me at times, I see the inter-college competitions, or I see some of my residents from last year out and about, and it does make me reflect on the amazing time I had, and how I did wish that I would have been able to continue it this year. But at the same time, if I look at where my trajectory is now, all of these coaching roles that I've picked up this year, none of those would have been made possible if I had, remained in that subwarden position. And I think, there's pros and cons to, any type of rejection. And yes, it did suck at the time. But at the same time, there's a part of me that's actually thankful that I got that rejection, because it means that, I've found something now that I'm actually, I'd put up there as one of my top passions. And I don't know if I would have found it, maybe a couple of years down the track, but I don't think I would have found it as soon as I have now. So yeah, very thankful that, although the rejection sucked, and, especially in that immediate rejection phase where, you kind of go, what's next? It does suck, but, there's, definitely pros that have come as a result of that initial rejection.
Yeah, and let's be honest, guys. Rejection is hard. We're all humans. We're all humans. When someone says, "Hey, you're not good enough according to what the standard is," you start second guessing yourself and thinking about, oh, why am I even trying this? And then from there we realize our strength about what we're going to talk about and what our passion is. And Lloyd, talking about your passion, where did this actually start from? Because you said you're from a small province, a small village. Where did the idea of telling stories through a visual medium start for you? Or were you a oral storyteller as well, or was it the videos that really got you in camera work?
Well, it was kind of like an expected moment for me because back when I was still in high school, when I have my first my mobile phone, when we're doing like kind of like a school project where we have to do like presentations through a video project, I was kind of like the certain student or like certain guy in our class, like people would just like wanted to be in group with me because I was kind of like already trying to get into like as a hobby of like trying to learn how to edit videos and how to create compelling videos and stuff like that. But it was just purely just like for school projects or like video projects in school. But later on, when I was like as my final years in high school back in the Philippines, I feel like getting more, I get and delve more into it, like started doing like, oh, just doing going out with my friends from high school, like, oh, can we make a fun like short film, just like a short film just for fun, like we could go out. And then they were kind of like supporting me as well. We're just like making like short videos for fun. But then later when we were like about to graduate from high school, I see most of my friends, they've already started like applying to like university and stuff. They wanted to pursue like in a nursing school or like medical school, uh getting like business degree. But I was like still kind of like very undecided of what I really wanted to do. Like I don't know what I really want to do as a career, and I didn't know much at that point that I could make a career out of just like doing like filmmaking and stuff. And then it was just like when I graduated from high school, I decided to kind of like, I thought that I would just have like a gap year, just like exploring more about the filmmaking. And then I just didn't expect that I would be able to fall in love with filmmaking. Like I started like learning about more just like on YouTube and stuff like that in online courses and how the basic of filmmaking and stuff. And yeah, just yeah, started making short films and then later on discovered that I could join some international film festival and then won some of it. And then I just, like that certain moment that you just feel, oh, this is what I really wanted to do. I wanted to inspire other people. I wanted to share other people's stories, like especially the unheard stories in my hometown, and be able to use my craft and my skills to tell that to other people, to inspire them from the stories that I wanted to tell. So, yeah.
It resonates with myself and Tane because this is why we started the podcast, to tell stories. And like you said, you want to share stories about people that don't have a voice or people whose voices are shadowed by other things, or also perception. When people see a certain place or a certain culture, they have a different perception. But by telling stories like your story, and I like to talk about yours. I mean, you've got tons of amazing clips out there, which are really beautiful. I want to talk about the pivotal moment, the one where you won the award, because I think that's changed your trajectory just a little bit. Um, and it's a very beautiful story. If you haven't seen it, guys, jump onto Lloyd's YouTube channel and you'll find it there. It's a very beautiful story. What inspired you to tell that story for the movie that won that award?
So the first ever major filmmaking award that I had was like actually it was a smartphone film competition that was hosted here in Wellington, New Zealand. And it was a collaboration between MENA Mobile Innovation Network Association and the Goethe Institute here in New Zealand. They run a smartphone competition where they only open entries for all Southeast Asian countries, where they're looking for environmental short film. You have to tell a story that is like an environmental short film that your home country or your hometown is like the story in your we have to find like a story that is environmental in where we are living. And I was one of the Southeast Asian countries who represented the Philippines to come here in Wellington for a 1 week long nucleus workshop where we have to do like a collaborative film project about like a climate change and environmental short film. And it was, yeah, it was my short film is all about like this environmental problem that my hometown it was facing a few years back, where there's like a huge stone crusher in my hometown where it's kind of like destroying the nature. Like it also affected like the farmers in my hometown, which people kind of like just overlooked about it, never care about it. But I wanted to tell stories about it, that it's really happening, and it's really destroying like the nature, the natural resources in my hometown. And out of nowhere, it's just like I won. I was one of the winners to come to Wellington, New Zealand last 2019 to to tell about it and to collaborate with other Southeast Asian filmmakers as well. And the thing that I just really was not really expecting, because that short film was only just shot with my pretty much cheap smartphone. So I was not really expecting about it that somehow it would one of the winners to come to Wellington last 2019. So yeah.
And it's a beautiful story, and it's based on the stories are about a plant as the analogy for how life is done, right? And it's really really stunning. Why did you pick that particular plant? Is that plant unique to your province or unique to Philippines, or was it just an idea that this is actually encapsulates my story?
Yeah, so what I wanted to show in my short film entry was there was this one plant, because it was also one of the theme and one of the mechanics of the short film entries, that we also have to showcase like a native plant that's like originated from your country. So I chose this one plant that's called like alocasia. And I just really, when I was doing a research about this certain plant, there was some kind of like interesting characteristics. And I just thought that why not I could somehow make this plant in a poetic way. I want to narrate this plant as one of my main character in my short film, but in a way that I wanted to portray the characteristics into kind of like a human being, like a human, like a young woman who's like by the name of alocasia, by the name of the native plant, trying she was trying to tell us stories that she was kind of like being hurt of what other people is doing to her, like environment in her environment and the natural resources that surrounds her. So I've kind of like I told the stories in a poetic way that I kind of like represented the characteristic of the native plant to the characteristic of a human being being disrupted by what the humans beings are doing to our natural resources and environment.
It's got so many layers. I mean, it's got so many, you can look at it from an environment perspective, but also from a female perspective. And just the layers are really, as I watched it about 3 times last night, in preparation for this, but because every time I watched it, I found a different layer. And so, it's a great storytelling from different perspectives. But talking about disruption, Lloyd, what is it like for you coming to New Zealand for that first time there? Was it your first time in New Zealand in 2019, or had you been here before?
Yeah, that was my first time, like
And what is it like?
like,
Yeah, what is it like?
oh, I feel like, especially coming from a completely different environment and different lifestyle and culture in the Philippines, I feel like everything that I've just seen once when I visited last Wednesday was just like everything was so new to me that I feel like I've just seen everything just nice and like amazing. I was like, oh, I really wanted to live here someday because yeah, just like the environment, like especially the nature and natural sceneries, everything is just looks so breathtaking and amazing. Yeah.
And what's it like for your family, for you to leave, to go on this adventure here? Because you like you said before, small town, small province, jumping on a big plane, for them to say goodbye to you. Did they feel like, oh, our young man is heading away, but only for 1 week? But what is the feeling? They must have been proud of you as well.
Uh, yeah, they were kind of like pretty hesitant and very anxious about me going into the kind of like a big world, like especially like my grandma and my mom. They were kind of like really scared for me, like, like living alone, like living far away from them. They were just like kind of like very worried about me of how I'm gonna settle down and I'm gonna survive like without them, like because I grew up with like with mom just like pretty much doing everything at home, just like cooking and stuff like that. So they were kind of like very anxious. It took me a while to kind of like convince them that why not I wanted to seek discomfort and get out of my comfort zone and like try to learn something out of it in this experience. And then later on I just like kind of like convinced them that maybe you could do it. And yeah.
Oh, brilliant. So did you go? So you came for a week. Did you go back to Philippines and then come back again, or what? How did you come back to New Zealand again? Did you? So 2019, you come in for the award. 2020 lockdown.
Yeah.
So yeah, tell us about that story. Tell us
So it
about how
was
that
like
transition.
2019 I came here, and then it was just like later last July 2022 that I decided I want to come here to study film, like a degree in screen arts at Massey University here in Wellington. So yeah, so my first visit here was like only 1 week long last 2019, and then I kept reapplying during lockdown, like just to get in for like a student visa to come back
Yeah.
here to study. But then yeah, I came back here now. I've been here back again for like 1 year already in New Zealand.
Oh, fantastic. And can you tell us, we're going to shift a little bit focus. What was lockdown like for you in the Philippines? Because, everyone talks about America or New Zealand or whatever, but no one ever talks about Southeast Asian countries or other countries in the world that are going through different lockdowns, unless the media goes, there's 5,000 deaths. Otherwise, what is it like for you and your family in your small town?
I think I could say that we've also been through like a strictest lockdown where there only one in our household that could go out for like to buy like medicines and go out for groceries. And in order for us to get into like even just like to a neighboring towns, there's like certain checkpoints where like military are like trying to check like certain documents and like IDs and stuff. Like, and also I still could remember that it was like a strictest lockdown. Like aside from like wearing masks, we also have like to wear this like face shield that's like, I don't know, like it's just always getting in the way. But it was really quite a struggle. It's just like to go out as well. Yeah, it was like one of the strictest lockdown where you cannot really go out if you're not going out for like an important stuff, like buying groceries, but only one per household that could go out as well. So yeah, that was like I could say that it was a strict just lockdown where we kind of like a semi-military takeover to just to contain the virus.
Yeah, because the Philippines has got an interesting time. According to the media, they talk about your leader being very strict, especially with drugs. Were you around? Were you? What is it like for you growing around that time? They where the Western media will go, "Hey, this is terrible. We're just executing drug dealers on site." Versus what it's actually like in the Philippines. If you were that time, you want to talk about that there?
Yeah, because I feel like a few years ago when we have that kind of governance, I was still that kind of a person. I was still so young to be aware of what's going on when it comes to participating in the politics and the government. So I don't know much of what was going on by that time, but it also comes with like in different cities with what's going on, and most certainly lots of things going on was only in the bigger cities, so I
Yep.
didn't have much of like a perspective of what's really going on in my country, because back in my hometown we don't see much of like those kind of things in my hometown because it was just a small town.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I love that. The reason I ask that question is because when people think about a country, they say Philippines, but they don't realize Philippines is vast. It's such a big place that, when you say Philippines, you've got to be very, very specific about what you're talking about, with so many islands and, it's a whole different crazy place. I'm going to shift focus just a little bit now and talk about something that I think is really that comes through with you is your mental health and well-being. As you came to New Zealand and you spoke about this at the start that trying to find your way through has been a challenge. Let's talk about when did you realize that, hey, this is something that is actually something that is real, that your mental health and well-being, because when you grow up in a family knit community, everything is tight and close, and then suddenly it all disappears, and then but also at the same time you want this adventure here. You said to your mom and you go, hey mom, grandma, I'm fine, I'm off I go. When did you go, actually, wait a minute, there's a bit more than just me going and having an adventure?
So yeah, it was kind of like really hard, and especially like coming from, like I started having like this some sort of like everything just like taking a toll on me, like the loneliness and homesickness of just like being away from your family with mental health. And I was kind of like really struggling in how to cope up with it, especially living here where I basically don't know anyone at all. Like you don't know who to turn to when you're like kind of like struggling with something, just like someone to talk to when you're feeling down. But I just found like I was kind of like using it to kind of like document it as well and to try to share my stories. And I was not expecting that when I was like started showing it, like like sharing it through like TikTok and Reels and stuff like that, I started getting like messages from other people like who are feeling on the same boat as me. And I feel like it kind of like give a sense, like it also motivate and inspire other people that they feel like they're not alone, that someone out there like me that also struggling with the same thing. So yeah, I think it was really hard, but at the same time I feel like my skills for like making, just trying to put myself out there, like being brave to like talk about it, that it's like really happening, like try to recognize it, my true feelings and emotions of what I'm really feeling. I didn't expect that other people will started messaging me as well, that they find it like really, they feel like they were not alone, that they feel like someone out there like me also struggling the same thing. So in the same way that I also help other people to feel like they're not alone and that it's okay not to feel okay sometimes, something like that.
Yeah, beautiful. And I think it ties back to what Tanya said right at the start, about when you get in a certain role, you have to act a certain way. So when you go to university or when you leave another country, you have to act like, oh, everything's all good, I'm all macho and everything's all good. But actually your true emotions, your true values are still there. And if you don't let them out, then you're going to get sick. And the fact that you shared your story is a story that most people feel. When I came as an international student all those years ago, a bit like you, Lloyd, I still remember landing here, and I still remember there was nobody. I knew nobody, zero. I came from Zimbabwe, and I landed in Dunedin, and there were no Zimbabweans. It was crazy. And And I still remember saying to myself, this is actually quite scary. And I came as a postgrad, not even as an undergrad. I came as a 21-year-old, 23-year-old. So it's not like I had left school. I had lived experience. But like you, week 1 or week 2 or week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6, I was like, man, this is pretty daunting, pretty scary, because your world has shifted dramatically. Your friends, but also the culture, like I said, around you is totally different. And who do you talk to? Who's going to understand you? Who's going to understand your same lingo? There's nobody, right? So and I did the same thing that you did. My motivation at that point in time was nobody who comes to the university I worked at that point as international can feel what I felt. A bit like you, because you're sharing your story. Hey, I'm sharing my story here. It's open for people to share the story there. So it's a beautiful analogy or a resemblance as to our life pathways. But the crazy thing is that was 20 years ago, but still 20 years later, the same things are going to go with human nature. You're still going to have those emotions because humans are just emotions, right?
Yeah, I totally
Yeah.
agree with that. Yeah. But especially as well, like I feel like it's so much better today, especially with the wonders of technology. Just that you could just easily like call your family back home, and you could just jump into like a FaceTime or video chat, and then you still kind of like see them and talk to them compared to like many years ago. So I feel like the wonders of technology today kind of like help as well when it comes to like coping up with it, with
Yeah.
loneliness and homesickness, something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, totally. And I guess homesickness is also not just for international students. It's also like Tana, you'll talk about homesickness as leaving home. Homesickness is wherever you are.
Yeah, definitely. And that was, it's been a challenge at different parts of my life for different reasons. And I think, like, I think sometimes too, you don't recognize that it's there until, often too late. But, like there's been times where I'll be doing everything, my routine hasn't changed, but for some reason there's something that, like that just makes me miss home. And then, sometimes I realize that I haven't called mum and dad for, a couple of weeks where I usually call them every week, or, so sometimes it is just subtle things that you almost do subconsciously, so you don't really pay much attention to it. But then all of a sudden, your mood starts changing and you try and pinpoint it. And, usually it's your immediate surroundings that you try and pinpoint it to. Is it my eating? Is it exercise? Is it sleep? All those kinds of things. But sometimes it actually is, those wider social communities that I think we often forget about or forget the importance, because it's almost it's something we take for granted, right? We always have it there. So it's like, okay, cool, sweet. We've got those support structures, but, actually sometimes you have to feed those relationships too. You can't just, leave them there and hope they sustain themselves.
It's like a garden, right? You can't expect a garden to grow without watering the plants. And that's just your family is as well. Because it's very easy. Like Lloyd, you said it's very easy for us to connect, but if we don't take the active step to connect, technology is not going to help us, right? And I think a lot of us, I mean, I'm guilty of this as well. I'm like, oh, I'll call my parents one day, and then only when it's too late, like, oh, damn it, I should have called them even when things were going well. So yeah, that's a great reflection there. And Lloyd, as you're going through your journey now, what has been the biggest learning for you as you not with the filmmaking, but as yourself as a person, as you go through this world where you are tackling the loneliness, because that's a really it's an individual journey, but it's also a journey with a community.
Pardon, what was the
Sorry, so basically I was asking, as you were delving into this world of where there's loneliness around you, but what have you found, what strengths have you found yourself feeling, but not as an individual, but also as a community, because you're a community builder, you build a community with your storytelling. And what have you found as an amazing fascination for yourself as you've done this with
I
growth?
feel like, yeah, I feel like it's just the ability to being able to inspire and like being able to help other people as well, just through, like it's just it just feels fascinating for me, and I feel like um it feels amazing, like being able to just like, oh, I thought to myself, because before I started like doing what am really passionate about with a lot of things in life. I was just like doing it for myself, but it came to the point where like I'm not just doing this passion or pursuing this passion not just for myself, but at the same time, it's just so fascinating to feel like you're pursuing your passion, but at the same time you're also helping other people as well. You're trying to build like a community of people where they feel somehow like being inspired and motivated to pursue what they really wanted to do in life as well. So I just feel like that's like one of the fascinating things that I kind of like learned so far with like just doing the things I love in life.
Isn't it crazy though, the things that you love in life that people resonate with? You don't go out there to actively find these people here. They came to you
Mhm.
because they just resonate with your story, and there's going to be haters everywhere, but the people that really value your content and value as a person are gonna come to you because your stories are very authentic. There's some cool editing, but the actual story is pretty authentic. What is it like for you seeing the Philippines here at the Women's World Cup?
Oh, that was amazing because I don't know how could I say it, because like the whole entire experience, it was just surreal. And especially like it was also my first time to kind of like be in like a big stadium and to watch like a football match, because I could say that I'm not really a fan of football much, but I came there, I watched the World Cup, especially for the Philippine team, just to kind of like support my home country team, like sense of um like nationalism, like just supporting your country, like being proud of like being there, like supporting oh, it's my country. Like you feel like you were also playing in that match. Like you kind of like feel that certain feeling that you just feel like home as well. Like, like being so proud of like seeing your country representing like in another country in a big sports competition. So it was very surreal experience for me.
Yeah, I can see it. Just physically, your face is lighting up, and you're just a passion
Yeah.
is so cool. Especially, as you said, the loneliness being away from home, but now home comes to you because basically Philippines comes to New Zealand essentially, which should have been pretty cool for you.
Yeah, it was kind of like a moment of like being home away from home kind of moment in that moment.
Yeah. Talking about home, we've had a guest in the past who's also from the Philippines, and one of the things that she said to us is in Philippine culture, food is very important. Food is the way people connect. Um, as a young person, well, not a young person, was as you also said before, your mom made your food for you. Is that a big part of your culture? Food and meeting around food, and food is the essential point where we'll come and have a conversation, or yeah, is that was
Yeah,
that big for you?
yeah, I would say that especially back home, I think like food is kind of like also one of the things that makes us very connected and united, especially when we're doing in certain family occasions like birthdays and anniversaries, and just celebrating like certain milestones, like if someone graduated in the family, would just gather around with relatives and like share the food. So I feel like food also is a big part of our culture when it comes to like trying to unite and like just be with your relatives and family and like that in certain family gatherings. So yeah, I think food somehow one of the biggest factor and like one of the biggest thing that would help us like being united with your family as well, just sharing food together where everyone like prepares like, oh, my uncle bring this, my aunt bring this, and my mom cook this, and we just put it all in a big table together, or somehow like bring it to like the nearest beach and just like enjoy the food together. So yeah, I think food is like very huge part of the culture.
And I think food is a big part of most indigenous cultures. I think if we think about the world and look at indigenous cultures, especially, food is life essentially. Like Tana, I mean, in Māori culture as well, it's a big part of Māori culture.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it just, I guess for me, I think about it as it kind of breaks the initial barrier of, conversation. I think just having a commonality of like we're sharing food, it just breaks down so many barriers that you wouldn't think, like such a simple thing like we all have to eat essentially. But like it's such a small thing, and yet it breaks so many barriers and makes people so much more comfortable and willing to talk compared to, doing other things. So I think, not only that, but I think the sharing aspect of it, and, it's just it's a communal way to, learn more about people subtly, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, food is interesting, right? Food is I know it's a cultural construct. Like you said, we all have to eat. But if you think about, like you said, Lloyd, in most cultures, food is a invitation for celebration, but also invitation for conversation. You know, you have a birthday party, but you're not going there for the birthday party. You're going to have the food, which is there, and you're going to have the conversation, which is so crazy. You know, food is. I think we underestimate the value of food as we live in a world where we just got to go, 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 eat fast food, go, 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 and having lunch and stuff like that. No, no, I'll come to that there. So the value of food and eating with other people is can't be underestimated. Talking about underestimated, Lloyd, what is it like when you received your offer to come to Massey University? You must have been pretty excited.
Yeah, it was pretty exciting, but at the same time pretty anxious of what's gonna happen, of like how it's gonna be like the whole entire experience. But I was just kind of like, oh, because I always like tell myself whenever I'm up for like bigger things, I just want to kind of like encourage, and like I always live by this kind of like getting out of your comfort zone, like always seeking discomfort. I always see things. I just see it like something that I would kind of like learn at the end of the journey of like coming here. So I feel like I just see it like as a big thing, like getting out of my comfort zone, like seeking discomfort, getting out there, trying to do big things, which is totally out of my comfort zone. But at the same time, I also try to tell myself, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna learn like some of the biggest lessons in my life by doing it, by by pushing myself out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, that's where the greatest learning happens, but it's quite scary. It is quite scary. And did you come and live in a hall, or did you come flooding, or how did you when you first came?
No, I'm actually living with a host family here, like a Kiwi family. Yeah.
Oh, great. And what is that like for you? Obviously, because you come to this crazy cultural construct, and then you live with the host families who have their cultural construct as well. What is that? I mean, without saying anything negative or anything bad, what is it like for you
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
person? Yeah.
I feel like it has helped a lot when it comes to like settling in and like living, because you also like learn in the easiest way possible on how it works here. Like this is how Kiwi do, like this is the lifestyle of Kiwi and stuff like that. So I think it makes it like quite life pretty much easily, I could say.
What's the biggest difference for you from where you've come from to where you live to New Zealand? The one big difference.
I think I would say the one big difference is just like I was trying to find that sense of, like a family oriented like sense of net community, being close together, like just like back home it's just so easy for you to have that like as help, like kind of like a sense of community, like in a close knit community. And it's something that I kind of like struggled to see or upon coming here in New Zealand today, because I don't want to see it like wrongly, because like everyone's like have a certain cultural differences, but it's just something that I've been looking for, like a sense of community. Because back home, whenever, especially like, it's just very funny, like it's like whenever, like for example, in like a scenario of like my mom is cooking and they kind of like run out of like certain ingredients, you could just basically run over to your neighbors, just like knock through the doors, or do you have this salt, do you have this certain like spices and stuff, because my mom is cooking. It's just so easy for you, because like everyone is so open about it, and everyone is just so comfortable doing it, because there's like a sense of like helping each other out. So yeah, and something that I find it like might be kind of like a struggle, or like hard to do it like here in New Zealand today. That sense of like being comfortable, of just asking help, like, helping each other out
Yeah,
in a way.
and I guess I wonder if that's because we live in a bigger city. Maybe it's different in a rural area, but I think, like you said, it is something I noticed as well. But it could be the big city. I don't know. Maybe if we go to Kaikoura, where it's tiny, it could be totally different. Everyone knows everyone. I don't know.
Yeah,
But as you said,
yeah.
this is a big difference. But what is one similarity for you that you found between the Philippines and living in New Zealand for you?
Oh, similarities. I
Yeah.
think I would say the friendliness of people here, like yeah, like for example, just like being here, just like, you know, like whenever like especially when the first few weeks since I've been here, it was like people are just so nice, like especially when you're ordering like a coffee or something, like, or hopping into the bus, everyone just like, oh hi, how are you doing, like no one would really care about, like how's your day going, something like that. And especially coming from my small town community as well, everyone just like friendly, and you know I feel like that's like kind of like one of the similarities as well, that you could just easily like talk, not easily talk to people, but easily like to kind of like interact with people in a way, which is like, that just smile with them randomly, even though you don't know the person. So yeah.
Yeah, that's the beauty. People. I think inherently people are very good. We just have this perception that everyone's bad, but at the end of
Yeah.
the day, if you smile at somebody, they smile back, all cool, and life carries on. So it's really, really awesome. Great differences and great similarities there, Lloyd. Um, as you pursue your massive program, what have you started to discover about your joys in your filmmaking? What is something that you go, this is really cool through my study I've learned about this here?
Yeah, I feel like what I've learned so far is with my journey at Massey is just like being able to work with fellow like-minded people. Like you have like a sense of like you're in your own tribe. Like you get just to be surrounded with different creative ideas by this like creative individuals as well. So I think like it's also one of the important things that especially for those people are like work is going to be working in like a creative industry, like that sense of like being able to work comfortably and to work like efficiently with people with different ideas, and you come together and like make this certain craft, you know.
Yeah, that's really, really quite cool. You found your people, right? When you find your people, it just makes life so much easier.
Yeah.
Uh, Talking about finding your people, what is it like for you when you started to explode on social media? When you started getting all these likes from people, what is it like for you as a person? Obviously, like you said before, you don't do it for the comments or the likes. You do it because it's just sharing your story. How did you feel when people started, when your videos started getting a lot of views and your Instagram followers increased and your TikTok views just went up? How did you feel about that?
Oh, at first, I was just kind of like, I feel like it was new to me because, yeah, because uh, from the beginning, I wanted to pursue this passion just for myself, but I was not like aiming for like, oh, I wanted to be like very popular or like I wanted to gain like audiences for me. But at the same time, it just came to the moment that I just see it like as a leverage for me to build a community as well, a
Yeah.
community of people just like inspiring each other to do something or to pursue passion. I didn't see it like, yeah, I kind of like see it like as a leverage just to build my own community of like different inspiring individuals, different creative individuals from across the world, you know.
And that's beautiful because some people get out there because they want to be influencers and this is what their goal is. But when you look at your content and your media and just talking to you today, you can see that's not the mission. The mission is actually to share a story, to build a community. And I might be stepping over the line here, but it's about you trying to develop a community a bit like how you had one in the Philippines. You grew up in a community, and by doing this here, you're building a different kind of community connected through technology,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
which is pretty cool and pretty crazy. Um, and I guess this question here is, there's a certain theme to your stories as you go through. Is there something that you're super? What is your passion? So filmmaking is your passion, but is there anything that you go, hey, this is the place where I'd really love to tell a story about? Is it the climate? Is it about Lloyd? Is it about fitness? Is it about mental health? What is your thing, I guess?
So especially most of the short films that I've done, I kind of like wanted to show something of what's really happening in the world, like kind of like a social issues and stuff. Most of my short films kind of like delves into like a certain social issues that kind of a lot of people overlooked about it, especially like I made a short film about like to raise an awareness of an anti-rape and like climate change and like mental health and stuff like that. But at the same time, I also wanted to kind of like incorporate or like try to reflect it in my own experiences as well, and then try to combine them all together into like a short film or like into a work of that something like it's kind of like a combination of different stories that I've also met from different people, like their own experiences. So yeah, I'm also such a big fan of like being able to tell stories about like mental health, to kind of like show it like through my craft of making films, that mental health is really, it's really happening right now, that yeah, it's something that a lot of people should really talk more about it and being more comfortable about tackling about it, you know.
Yeah, so that's important because society, there's issues happening there's issues everywhere there's issues, and some issues are really more pertinent than others, and like you said, the whole mental health space is an interesting space because it's a real space, but also it's not just for young people, and I think this is one thing that we forget. There's this perception that mental health is only for young people. As I said, I mean, young people are they can do it, but actually, if we look at the world at the moment, it's actually whether you are 2 years old or 12 years old or 22 years old or 50 years old, mental health awareness is really important. And I love the way that you talk about that. And also, I guess, in a culture where, I mean, I know in Southeast Asian culture, talking about mental health is always is like a taboo. You're like, oh, this is not real. Don't talk about it. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's changing?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like it's slowly changing today, but there are still certain circumstances that it's still not being talked more about it, especially coming from my small hometown. People are not really aware about it, like it's really happening because they were just kind of like, oh, it's just your mind like doing the certain things. Why not just do this thing? It's like, yeah, it's not kind of like still being talked about it, but I could see it that it's slowly changing, especially the young generations in my hometown and in my city as well, in my province. They're trying to do something about it, especially they're using social media nowadays to kind of like share things about it. So people are like starting getting aware about it. But I could say that we're slowly getting there we're slowly getting there of being more open about like mental health is like really happening. Yeah, and I'm just really happy to see like those fellow younger generations in my hometown that they're kind of like using social media to raise awareness and to share knowledges and about like mental health and stuff.
And I guess you're in that boat as well because you're sharing your story, you share the awareness. People like Jazz Thornton out there talking the story, voices of hope. There's great awareness happening out there, which is
Yeah.
beautiful. Lloyd, we've been talking for almost an hour, which is fantastic. We can keep talking forever. Because I think you're very fascinating, and I'm sure there's a lot more we can delve into. But I don't want to keep you. What I do want to ask you though is, our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge. We invite all of our guests as our last question to tell us one piece of knowledge we'd love our guests and myself to put into our basket through your lived experiences. So, any pieces of knowledge you'd like to share?
I think, yeah. I would say that the basket of knowledge that I really wanted to share to anyone who's like watching or listening to this right now is just something that has been really biggest part of my life that I've been trying to leave is just seek discomfort. Like you would not know what could happen next or it could make your life difference if you just take that first step to getting out of your comfort zone because everything just could happen like instantly when you just like put in the work, put into the effort of like getting out of your comfort zone. If especially when you're like taking risks, like it's always in taking risks and like getting out of your comfort zone that you could see life's biggest lessons. It's just kind of like becoming like a domino effect that when you get out of your comfort zone, you would see life differently and you would like being able to inspire other people because you're doing this big thing. So I feel like just get out of your comfort zone, always seek discomfort. If you really have that one thing that you really want to achieve in life, take that big risk to achieve that, and you would learn a lots of different life lessons along the way of while you're trying to take that big risk or you're trying to achieve that one thing. So it's kind of like a domino effect that when you get out of your comfort zone, when you push yourself to seek discomfort, you would literally learn a lot of life lessons in life along the way.
I love that. Seek discomfort, and changes will happen. And in those changes, you're going to learn about yourself, and you're going to learn about the world, and the world is going to learn about you as well. So that's a very, very beautiful way to end this podcast here. Lloyd, it has been my privilege. Tana had to jump off because you had to go coach, but thank you so much for jumping on. To our listeners out there, hopefully you found this podcast really interesting. If you didn't, well, that's your fault. Please jump on and have a listen to see what else you can find in this podcast that is amazing. There's lots of amazing gold moments here. So till next time, thank you for jumping on. Keep listening to the podcast. Please like, share, comment, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Ka kite, take care, bye everyone, and thank you, Lloyd, for jumping on.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Baskets of Knowledge.
Yeah, we hope that you found something useful to put into your basket of knowledge. And as we said before, remember to put something little into your baskets of knowledge every week. And as always, feel free to like, comment, and share this podcast. Thanks, everybody. Bye.